Starting a business can be a very exciting process. It can also be very rewarding, but it's important to recognize that there is a right and wrong way to start and scale your business. So, in today's program, Leadership, Process, and Systems Pathway to Success, what I will do is to give some pointers of important concepts for you to consider. And as a startup in business, there are pitfalls that you want to avoid. I begin today's program by looking at leadership, but just at any type of leadership. Today, I want us to look at proactive leadership. In business, you want to be proactive. But what exactly does it take to be proactive? There are three important characteristics that makes the proactive leader stand out. So get your notes and take some notes on what I'm going to say now. The three essential characteristics that makes a leader, proactive leader stands out is one, proactive leaders, they think ahead. What exactly do they think ahead? We'll talk a little bit about that. Second, proactive leaders, they see beyond problems. And the ability to see beyond problems is so important because many rising stars, you get stuck in the problem zone. And when you get stuck here, guess what happens? It completely destroy your potential to achieve greatness. So we will talk about getting unstuck from that problem zone. And proactive leaders, third, they have the ability to take informed action. Now, the ability to take informed action is different than taking action. So, we will do a deep dive into this body of knowledge. And I'm trusting that moving forward, you, the rising star in business, you have some more nuggets, you have some more gems and tools to apply to move your business forward. So, let's begin by looking at thinking ahead. As a rising star in business, what we see is that very often you start a business. And as I said at the beginning, it could be a very exciting moment to start your business. But that excitement can disappear very soon in the startup process when you go about the startup in the wrong way. You want to do the startup in the right way. All right. So, what does it take to do your business startup the right way? Today, we will look at that. I want to take some time now to introduce one of my colleagues to today's program. I want to now introduce Frank. Hey, Frank, how are you, my brother? Can you hear me, Frank?
Rested very much. I'm
All
hearing you. Do you
right.
hear me?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
I am rested. Yes.
You're rested. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. All right,
Right.
Frank, I'm going to come back to you just now. We talking about leadership and some startup pitfalls that's, rising stars should avoid. So, as a proactive leader, you're thinking ahead. And what are those things that you were thinking ahead about? Now, let me go back to this. Starting a business should never be an emotional decision. You don't want it to be an emotional decision because when it is an emotional decision, it's going to cause you time, it's going to cause you stress, and it's going to cause you money. All right. It should never be an emotional decision. Now, what are those things that you want to be thinking about? Again, very often we see business start, but then you don't know who's the ideal client. So let me put this to you. If you don't know who is your ideal client, how is it that you're innovating product services for the market? Because Any attempt to innovate products and service, any attempt to provide products and service means that you should be providing a product or a service that you know the ideal client needs or wants. That's what's going to set you up for success. You see, when you go to market and you don't have an idea in terms of what the market needs, what does the market want, but then you're providing products and services, the possibility exists that you're providing a product and service that is not in high demand. You cannot assume these things. So, in thinking ahead, it means that you're thinking ahead about the ideal client. So, you need to spend time understanding the ideal client. Step one. But what does it mean to know the ideal client? What exactly does that mean? There are several factors that you need to understand as a leader in business, as a rising star in business. When you want to get this right, you really need to take the time to understand who is the ideal client. But what does it mean to say, I know the ideal client? Well, there are many factors that you need to consider when it comes to knowing the ideal client. All right. And I will spend some time going into that today because, as a leader in business, a rising star in business that wants to make impact, that wants to convert first time users, possibly into lifetime customers, that wants to cash flow optimize, that wants to scale and make national and international impact. These are important concepts for you to understand. The top 100 and the top 500 companies, this is where they begin with information. And if you don't have the right information about the ideal client, you shoot yourself in the legs. You have a blindfold over your eyes. And that's not the practical, smart way to do business. So when I come back, I'll be telling you essential things that you need to know about the ideal client before you get started and how to go about getting that type of information so you're creating a win-win situation. When you put a product out there, it's relevant to the ideal client. And because it is relevant to the ideal client, the client is willing to pay. You make money, you're now able to grow your business and say, hey, this is another success story that I have for myself. So when I come back, I'll talk about that. Frank, all to you,
Hey,
my friend.
it's great being here. Um,
Awesome.
Before I get into what I'm saying, I'm going to talk about in leadership. Um, Rest makes you a better leader. Rest makes you productive. And I was not here for a couple of days. Saturday was a rainy day. I slept all day Saturday.
Hmm.
I got up feeling good. And then this morning, I got up early, but I wasn't under the stress of just running to work. So I just laid back, forgetting everything about this morning. But I'm here all bright eyed, bushy tail, ready to go for another week. And rest is essential if you're a leader. Because if you're an
Vital,
ineffective leader,
vital.
if you're ineffective as a leader, it's just not only a drain on morale, it exacts a hefty toll on your companies. There was a Gallup research which underscores this, revealing that poor management leads to a whopping 24% of employees becoming actively disengaged. And this disengagement results in teams that are less productive, they're less profitable, they're prone to higher turnover rates, and the financial impact is staggering, often exceeding double the annual salary of each departing employee. In a world where we find leadership plays an indispensable role, the pursuit of effective leadership transcends mere skill acquisition. It becomes an imperative. The voyage towards becoming an influential leader is a dynamic, transformative journey, and it's intricately woven with essential traits and strategies. And so we have to unravel that pivotal element that will empower one to lead with influence and inspire others. Now, influence has power. If you remember early in whatever career you're in, authority may find its roots in your expertise, from your adeptness at building consensus. And as you ascend the leadership ladder, your sphere of influence should extend to shaping the very trajectory of your organizations. So trust forms, which is the bedrock of this influence. It pivots on a deep comprehension of what drives your colleagues. And leaders attuned to the nuances understand the resources that hold significance for individuals concerning their safety and self-worth. So by delving into these motivations and fostering open dialogue, you not only become a catalyst for change, but also champion the value of every voice within your team. As a leader, you need to strike the balance of transparency, because transparency emerges as the linchpin of trust building. Candid discussions about the organization's goals and challenges empower employees by elucidating their roles in the larger narrative. And this newfound clarity galvanizes engagement. Leaders, in their wisdom, will tailor the communication to resonate with their teams, providing a clear roadmap to bridge a gap between the present and the organization's vision. Now, while transparency is a beacon for collaboration and knowledge sharing, an overdose of it can render employees vulnerable. And leaders tread this fine line judiciously, ensuring that transparency sparks experimentation and collaboration while safeguarding individual privacy. As a leader, you need to cultivate innovation through risk taking. Sustaining a competitive edge hinges on fostering a culture of innovation and risk taking. So the leaders champion an environment where employees feel free to experiment, challenge conventions, and view mistakes as stepping stones to success. And what happens is that they actively endorse experimentation, challenge the unwritten norms, and they embrace failures. Now, this culture that celebrates creativity and regards missteps as valuable lessons will bring forth groundbreaking innovations. A poignant example is George's X Lab, where team members were rewarded for working on projects that, though eventually discarded, foster an environment where it was safe to fail. I have some other points, but I'll hand you back to Gary at this time.
Uh, Great points, Frank. You talk about risk taking, and I do believe the ability to manage risk is very important. And I think for a leader, there are two toolkits that I can think about for them to understand to manage risk. I think one, understanding the important tenets of management um, will help you to manage risk. I think understanding project management also toolkit. Those two toolkits will definitely help you to manage risk. But I will not get into to it today. But those are two important great points that you would have made. Now I want to get back to leadership and the process of thinking ahead, and what exactly should you be thinking ahead about. Since starting a business, one of the first things that you want to start thinking about is who is the ideal client, because your vision here is to provide products and services to the ideal client. But in providing products and services, you want to be certain that the product and the service that you're going to be providing will be consumed by the client. So, how do you know this? In leadership, in business, there's a concept that we call being market oriented. There's a concept that we call being market sensitive. And there's the concept that we call being market responsive. Now, as a leader, the last thing that you want to do is to be responsive to the market without taking the time to be market oriented and to be market sensitive, because you may be responding to a need that is only a fragment of your imagination. You might be responding to a need that is an assumption and speculation. You may be responding to a need that doesn't exist, or there's limited demand for that need that you intend to supply. So as a leader, these are important concepts that you want to think ahead about. So what steps can you take to be market sensitive and market oriented? Let us begin by looking at steps that you can take to be market oriented. As a leader, it's about collecting information about the ideal client. And let me try to break this down. Let us suppose that you are a rising star in business and you want to supply goods to the market. It would make sense to start to engage with people in their homes and in their communities, in their organization and in their institutions, and you ask the right questions. It is by going to the ground, engaging with the ideal client, asking the right questions, that's going to set you up to get the right information. And there's a number of information that you would need to get. There are some products and services that are specific to male. There are products and services that are specific to female. There are products and services that are specific to young people. So in starting a business, you want to get specific. And the only way to become oriented is by using secondary data, that is research that has been documented, but it may be relevant, and you're using that body of knowledge to make an informed decision about providing products and services to a group of people. The second way is you going to the ground and engaging with people. This is how you actually become market oriented. Yes, there may be a cost attached to that, but as we go deeper into this program, we will briefly look at that. Because what I want to say here on this particular point of cost, and these are things that you need to think about, because very often you have a rising star in business with a very great idea, but because you didn't think ahead of all the moving parts to make that business successful, guess what happened? You underestimate the cost of doing business. And because you underestimate the cost of doing business, that in itself undermines your efforts to be successful. But I'm going to come back to that just now. So as we talk about identifying, understanding the ideal client, you want to dig into collect market intelligence. So the more information you have about the ideal client, about their needs, wants, and expectations, their dreams and hopes and aspiration, the more information that you have here, this is what should be informing how sensitive you become to that market. You see, if you are innovating products and services and you're not oriented to market needs and you're not sensitive to market needs, it means that you have that blindfold over your eyes. So demand for products and services may be low. And just let me give a real case scenario to this. Imagine that you walked into an organization of 500 people, and you are on stage and you're talking to 500 people. And within that talk, you introduce a survey. And the survey is to possibly see how many persons are interested in greetings card, the physical printout greetings card. So you're doing a survey. So you have 500 persons here, and you ask the question, how many persons is willing to invest in your greetings card? Let us suppose that your greetings card is a special card. So out of your survey of, let us say, 500 persons, you have 300 persons respond favorably to your card. So you talk about the card that you want to produce. You also talk about the cost of the card and how it's likely to impact the ideal client that they want to purchase the card for. So when you finish the survey, it shows you that you have 300 out of 500 persons that have shown an interest in the cards. So not only that, because you're interfacing with the potential ideal client, from the questions that you ask, you then send out a data collection brochure where you're collecting their name and contact information and all of that. And you can collect it also what you call a pre-subscriber list or a subscriber list. So coming out of this survey, because you're an expert at what you're doing, you're not only able to share the information and extract essential body of knowledge, but you're able to even move into the upsell where you're getting pre-subscribers. So you now have 300 persons from one setting that is prepared to invest in your special card. Let us say the card is about $2,000. That market alone is $600,000 when you do the maths. All right, you have 300 persons willing to pay $2,000 for a product. It tells you that the market is $600,000 return. Now, what if you're able to do this now multiple times per day, multiple times per week, multiple times per month? You're collecting the intelligence about the market need. And because you have this intelligence, you can be more sensitive to what you should do and what you should not do. Now, let us suppose that the experience is the reverse. You give this information, and out of 500 persons, you have 2 persons say that they have an interest in your innovation. What decision should we be making here? Is this a decision to go into mass production of cards, or is this information that should say to you, pull back, do deeper analysis, really get to understand what the market needs, and then you move forward with that. So when we talk of being market oriented, it's really about going to the ground and get the information. Your business is likely to fail and will continue to fail because you don't have that intelligence. So getting to know the ideal client is when you can say that I know that my innovation is relevant to the ideal client. I know that my innovation is going to be viable because of market demand. I know that my innovation will be able to access the ideal client because I know exactly where they are geographically. I know that my innovation will be consumed with immediacy because you have done the research. I know that the ideal client has not only the ability to pay, but they also have the willingness to pay. Because having the ability to pay doesn't mean that anyone has the willingness to pay. Your innovation has to be aligned to their interests. And if your innovation, products or services is not aligned, why should they be willing to pay? But you don't know whether they're willing or not willing to pay because you are not market oriented. You are not market sensitive. But here you are being market responsive. That's a recipe to fail. So, as a startup in business, these are pitfalls that you want to avoid. Do not come to that point of being market responsive unless you commit the time or someone on your team or some subcontractor with the expertise spend the time with you to ensure that when you go into market you're able to fully understand the demand that you're going to supply, the value that you're going to be adding, the problems that you're going to be fixing based on data. So I'm going to pause here and turn back to Master Frank. All to you, my friend. You mute.
Sorry, you and this master.
All right.
Um, the the issue all about leadership when we look at the last thing I did was cultivating innovatively. You need to have what is called integrity and accountability, but it's sadly lacking amongst people who are placed in leadership positions because it's a cornerstone of leadership. Integrity reigns supreme in the leadership lexicon. Robert Half, it's a surveying firm. They did a survey, and 75% of employees rated integrity as a paramount quality of a leader. You see, the employees yearn for advocates who treat them justly and champion the organization's best interests. And leaders, being the custodians of integrity, not only abstain from accumulating power, but they also steer clear of decisions that could adversely affect others. And this in turn begets trust, where the team and sets a model of ethical conduct for the entire organization. As a leader, you need to have the art of decisiveness because in the ever accelerating business environment or landscape, effective leaders are called upon to make astute decisions and make them promptly. Um, and this is often done in the face of uncertainty, recognizing that decisions are part of an intricate process. Leaders will act resolutely. They continually evaluate their choices while remaining adaptable to the evolving scenario. As a leader, you need to be resilient in how you navigate the storms. Storms will come. Failure is an extricable facet of leadership. And effective leaders exemplify resilience by continually assessing their approach, unwaveringly adhering to their primary goals while displaying the flexibility to pivot when required. They preserve their belief in their team's mission, and effective leaders embrace challenges head on, taking ownership of their decisions, upholding optimism, and charting those new trajectories. You need to have, as a leader, the power of self reflection. So, become an effective leader is a transformative journey that commences with introspection. Transitioning from an individual contributor to a leader entails a shift in focus from personal accomplishments to the collective progress of the group. It involves crafting an idea that transcends individual achievements, creating an environment conducive to others' excellence, and adapting one's leadership style to align with the organization's evolving needs. The path to effective leadership is an ongoing odyssey of growth and transformation. So, when you're embracing these fundamental characteristics and strategies, you embark on a leadership expedition that not only leaves you, but also empowers your team and empowers your organization. Thank you, Gary.
All right, great points on leadership. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to expand on very quickly about the type of leadership that I'm discussing today. Today, I'm discussing proactive leadership. And I'm discussing proactive leadership in the context of business startup. As a proactive leader in business, there's a couple of things that you want to do. Proactive leaders, they think ahead, they see beyond problems, and they take informed action to achieve a desired end results. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to complete a menu of things that you should be thinking ahead about, especially as a startup. And then I'll go back to the first concept. So, what are those things that you should be thinking ahead about? I already spent some time discussing. You want to spend time identifying the ideal client and asking yourself, how can I serve the ideal client at the highest level? Any attempt to serve the ideal client at the highest level means that everything that I've said above, you need to understand. We're going to come back to that just now. But along with this, to manage a business, to lead a business successfully, it often requires more than you, the individual, unless you're very skilled at micromanaging. And if even you're skilled at micromanagement, there's a concept that we call burnout. There's a concept that we call self sabotage. And all of those things might be relevant to you if you're going about doing your business, me, myself, and I, depending on the nature of your business. So you want to identify what we call human resource needs. To successfully manage a business, to successfully lead an operation, very early in the game, you want to start identifying what are the human resource needs. The right human resources can help to fast track the growth of that business. So as you think about human resource needs, there are three categories of resources that you want to be thinking about in the context of managing the business or leading the business successfully. So human resource needs falls into the category of you thinking about who's your strategic team, who's your tactical team, and who's your operational team. So you have strategic leadership, tactical leadership, and operational leadership. So as you build out the organization chart, you might have a business that might be a supermarket, a supermall. It might be a management consultancy firm, a law firm. And you're asking yourself these questions. What are the essential human resources that I need to move the vision forward? In the context of a supermall or supermarket, you need to have people like the procurement manager, the value chain expert. You need to have the finance specialist. You need to have, public relation, marketing, and branding. You need resources to move the process forward. And it's important for you to think ahead of the human resources to move that vision forward, because the inability to do this and to do it well because it is not only about saying, I need human resources to function in these areas, but you need competent human resources that can be effective in executing their mandate to function in those processes, in those areas of leadership. The inability to attract, the inability to acclimatize the right leaders in these leadership positions can also set the stage to undermine your role as a leader, leading your business ideas. Of course, I'm doing a high level overview. These are very deep subject matters, but today I'm doing a high level overview of when we talk about leadership and proactive leaders. The first tenet of thinking ahead, I'm just trying to go through what it looks like. So you don't start that operation, you open doors to the public, and then you recognize that you don't have the procurement officer in place. So you're running out of stock very quickly. You cannot restock it fast enough. So when customers now comes in, they are dissatisfied because they are making requests for products and you don't have the products. So very quickly in the game, they start thinking of alternative sources to source their products or services because you did not think ahead of what it's going to take to effectively manage the operation. And this happens very often with startup in business. Sometimes you're not even a startup, but you're running a mom and pop, and because you're doing a little hustle here and a hustle there, all of the key moving parts to successfully manage that entity is not being looked at. And it undermines your relationship with the ideal client. And the ideal client is who's going to be pumping money into your business. So when your systems, when your processes is not set up properly to create consistent positive impact with the ideal client, it undermines the consistent cash flow of your business. Again, I'm doing a high level overview. So let me go to the next concept. What you need to be thinking ahead about. You need to think ahead of technical resources. What are the technical resources to move your business smoothly ahead? Again, if you're not thinking ahead of these things, the possibility exists that you're going to open door and you don't have all of the technical processes to deal with the ideal client that you have choose to innovate products and services for. And because of your inability to do this, again, you undermine the very process that you should be upholding to make the strongest impact on the ideal client. So technical resources is not only technology, there may be technical human resources. In the case that you have a medical practitioner operation providing specialized medical support or health support to your community, you may not be the person with the expert skills, but you got the factors of production. You got land, you hire the expert labor, you got capital, and you got an enterprising way of thinking. So when that technical support is not there, but then you have the customer base is dependent on the technical support, what happens? Frustration steps in. So technical resources is both human and machinery. And as you started to go deep into the business startup experience, the business scale up experience, these are concepts that you want to own and you want to master them. You don't wait until your backs are against the wall and then you start to I wish I had known. Great leaders look before they leap. And that's what we're talking about here. Looking before you leap. Great leaders collect sensitive data. Great leaders analyze sensitive data. Great leaders leverage the right information. And great leaders know exactly how to mitigate information to achieve targeted results. You see, leadership is not blind. Leadership is being able to push and move a process forward, but you're able to do so intelligently because you have the information. All right, you have the information. So again, I'm going to pause because I don't want to put too much of information out immediately. We are doing some deep dive. There's a lot for us to talk about here, but if we're going to do a deep dive in some of them, so as to ensure you have a high level overview. So as we talk about leadership processes and systems, is to really get you to the point where you can understand this. And I want us to do this, say this. We are working with clients from all over the world. And what we are saying to you, they are proven steps. All right. We have built out what we call the science to success. We are now looking at the Science of Success University, where we see things in terms of the science, the theory, and the practice. The science, the theory, and the practice. That means that we have gone the extra miles to collect information, scientific data on processes that we are going to be sharing with you. Some you're going to get here, but when you come into our community, you're going to get so much more to accelerate the growth of your business. Frank, all to you, my friend. You're mute.
I'm mute. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I was looking at the topic over there, which looks at leadership, the processes and systems, how
Mhm.
they become pathway to success. And when you look at the topic, it sounds like a comprehensive framework for understanding and implementing effective leadership. And if you want to break it down, leadership is the overarching concept of guiding and influencing others towards a common goal. Effective leadership involves a combination of traits, combination of skills, combination of behaviors, put them all together and inspire and motivate um, individuals or groups to achieve objectives. The processes, when we look at it in the context of leadership, the processes refer to the systematic approach or series of steps used to accomplish tasks, make decisions, how you achieve your goals. And this could involve what are your objectives, planning, um, organizing resources, implementing strategies, and even evaluating outcomes. In the systems aspect, it encompasses the structures, that framework, mechanisms that are put in place to support and sustain effective leadership practices. Now, this includes organizational structures, the communication channels, the feedback loops, the performance management systems, and there's policies, and not forgetting the procedures. So if you want a path, if you have all this, the pathway to success will imply that a leadership, the processes, the systems, they are not isolated concepts, but they're all interconnected elements that pave the way for achieving success. A pathway to success suggests a deliberate and a strategic approach to leadership development and also to organizational effectiveness. So when you combine these elements, with leadership processes and system, it suggests a holistic approach to leadership development and organizational management. It's also emphasizing the importance of integrating effective leadership practices with systematic processes and those supportive systems in order to drive success. It will also core idea. Leadership is not about individual traits. It's not about charisma. It's about implementing structured processes and systems that enable individuals and organizations to thrive. I have been in leadership for a while, but what you find happening most times, whether it's private sector, public sector, is that they put spikes onto the tracks so that when you're running for success, you're impeded by these tracks. That's not what leadership is about. Leadership is about creating that space, that environment where there are less um, hurdles, less spikes being placed on the tracks, so that the team can move forward, so that the team can come into a position of leadership. I've often sat and wondered, how does a person or human being feel when they are trying to suppress persons who are thriving? And I remember the days when I started my undergraduate, um, an ordinary public servant, and the fight to go to class because somebody felt that when you come out with this degree, you come in from a new position. Hello. And so when you come into the sphere of leadership, instead of fighting down the person going to further their education or whatever, or halting their business, or trying some way, it comes from envious feelings, whatever, or what we call this self-conscious bias that only you should be moving forward. Leadership is more than that. Leadership is making sure that the person have what it takes, the benefits that are supposed to be there for them to progress them. And that's what we're talking about, pathway to success, and the kind of systems and processes are used as a leader to give you that path to success. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, good share, Frank. As a leader in your organization, you need to ensure that some of the things that Frank spoke about in the negative is not part of the corporate culture, because that will definitely undermine the organization ability to attract and nurture highly educated and skilled professionals to execute on behalf of the industry itself. So those are some pitfalls that you want to avoid. But let me get right back to proactive leaders and the process of thinking ahead. What else should you be thinking ahead about? You should be thinking ahead about capital resources. Again, what we see is that many companies fall under because they underestimate the cost of doing business. To run a business successfully, you must be focusing on the administrative cost and the operational cost, and failing to look into these essential issues of management, of leadership, of business sustainability. By default, you're going to undermine the potential of that business to achieve its objective. So, on our platforms, as we look at these issues, we look at it not because it's another subject to look at, but we look at it based on the fact that we are seeing millions of businesses across the world that are starting are failing. And you're failing because you don't have the right leadership skills. And because you don't have the right leadership skills, you don't have the right processes. Because you don't have the right processes, there's nothing to systemize. And because you're doing things not in a systemized approach, you don't have consistency. You don't have predictable outcome. You don't have accountability, and you set the stage up to fail. But let me push a little further into processes. In the context of this conversation, this discussion, it's important as a rising star in business to understand processes. And to successfully run a supermarket or a supermall, you need to have the right processes. For example, there is a process for procurement, there's a process for value chain management, there's a process for HR, there's a process for finance management, there's a process for public relation and marketing. And as Frank would have said earlier, these processes are not isolated incidents. They are not divorced from each other, but they are part of the ecosystem to ensure that you have smooth management. Because let's take, for example, you have no set process structures and leadership within your processes. So you have the public relation team that is driving public awareness for your products and services, for your innovation. But then you have procurement is lagging, you have value chain management is lagging. So what happens again when you get public relation marketing do a good job to raise public awareness of your value offer, and they begin to show up for products and services, but then value chain and procurement didn't do a good job. What happened? So these are any attempt to manage the business properly. You need to have clear processes, clear processes throughout the business ecosystem. So earlier we talked about your organization chart. We talk about your leadership, strategic, tactical, and operational leadership. These are not isolated roles in the organization. These are integrated uh, roles and processes in the organization. And when you see that you have weak processes, again, this sets the stage up for your vision to be on the mind. And hence, this is the reason why we do these topics. And we are doing these topics again not because we can do it. We are doing it because we see that there is a need to articulate and educate on these particular incidents because we are seeing that millions of businesses across the world they are failing because you don't have the right leadership again and because you don't have the right processes. You don't understand all of the right processes. All right. So understanding processes and processes, let me try to break this down a little bit more. Every single department that falls under your organization chart should be managed and influenced by clear processes. So, what is the process to hire? What is the process to acclimatize personnel to the organization? What is the process to be completed before the human resource becomes public relation manager? Do you just hire today and send the personnel to do public relation? Do you hire today and just send the personnel to do procurement, or do you have an acclimatization process so they understand a standard operating procedure? So the process is what we're going to call the SOP. Do you have standard operating processes, procedures? You see, if there's no standard, there's no consistency, there's no accountability because there's no transparency and everything goes wrong. So instead of someone putting spike on your track, you put the spike on your own track, and then when you don't succeed, you 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 open your voice to the top of the world. But because you don't have the right systems, the right processes, you undermine your chance for success. And let me try to give a graphic picture of what process can be. And then I'm going to turn back to Frank, and then we're going to start to wrap up. Now, let's look at your public relation marketing department. So, you run a supermarket, and it's a new supermarket. So, you have to break through the know, like, and trust. All right. Yes, you have a supermarket and you're carrying FMCG, fast moving consumer goods. But let us suppose that you want to attract people and you want to attract them in fast. Do you have a process for this? So a good process might look like your relationship with influencers, because you either have to have internal influencers or external influencers as part of your process. Why is this so important? Because influencers, they are known, they're liked, and they're trust. So these individuals can get you past the know, like, and trust like a click of the finger. So is influencers or are influencers a part of your process? Because they are going to help you to get the visibility in marketing. They're going to help you to make the reach in marketing. They're going to help you to make the impact. And from impact, you get client conversion. From client conversion, you get cash flow optimization. From the cash flow optimization, once your systems, your process is properly systemized, but your process has to be systemized. Here is where you build the confidence, the trust, and the credibility in the eyes of the public. Does your processes look anything like this? If not, perhaps it's one of the reasons why you're not going to be as successful as you want to be, because you need to have clearly established processes for marketing, for public relation, for finance, for management, and then you want to make sure that they are properly systemized. I didn't talk a lot about systemization, but you want all of these things to be done, and that's what's going to set you up for success. Now, I'm going to talk briefly on systemization. Systemization, in the context of what we are discussing here, has to do with you understand your leadership processes, all the best practices within leadership. You understand the best practices. You develop your process now. But sometimes the head can't see the tail, and it should never be like that. So in systemization, you have transparency that first stand out. Transparency. So anyone who's in marketing and public relation understand that if we're going to be launching a new product, there's a hard way, there's a smart way. The smart way, let us connect with our influencers. That's part of the process. And you have transparency with this. So anyone who's going to do marketing public relation, they know one of the first things for them to do is connect with influencers, because influencers are going to endorse the brand and influencers are going to get the product visible in the marketplace. So you have a transparent process there. So if someone cuts against that grain, you can look at your systems and hold them accountable for that. You can say you didn't do this and this is why the results is this. You have accountability built into your systemization process. And because you have this now, you can have consistency in how people do things. Can you imagine going to a bakery where one time they cook the best, pastries for you, or bread, best this, and the next time you go and you make a purchase and it's your worst nightmare? How would you feel? That's exactly what happens when there is no transparency in your processes. There is no accountability in your process. There's no consistency in your processes. You're just like that baker who has not transferred the body of knowledge to the bakers, so they know that this is a consistent, transparent approach that you're going to be using to get predictable outcome with the highest degree of accuracy at the end of the day. So as you set yourself up for success, these are important concepts that you want to think about. And what we're talking about here is applicable to both products, product industry, and service industry. It's important. And of course, we're doing a high level overview here. But to learn more, I encourage you to get the books that we have written. I know Frank is going to be releasing a new book shortly, and reach out to us. Again, I must say this: if you are in the United States of America, in 50 states, and you need access to capital to grow and scale your business, I want to encourage you to make contact with me. All right. Whether you're looking for debt or equity, credit, creative financing, or hard money lending, and we have a number of our partners that is willing to work with you to ensure that you get the much needed cash to move your vision forward. So I want to encourage you to reach out to me and reach out to me now and to really, help your business to get the injection of capital and to move your vision forward. And of course, we can talk about, as you get capital, we always talk about this. You don't want to take capital and it is an emotional decision. You don't invest capital from a front end analytics, you do the back end analytics. This applies to your business too. We'll talk about that. So if you're in the US, 50 states, you need capital. Use the numbers on your screen, and I'll be happy to talk with you. Frank, can you talk to us a little bit about your book, and you can talk about what we're discussing here today, and I would love to hear something about your book before we start to wrap up. All to you, Frank.
All right. Um, well, the book is all about living in this fast-paced and ever-evolving landscape of businesses. It's a book for politicians, pastors, head of household, businesses. And apart from that, there are two others that um, are in the second trimester. So, but this morning, what I want the benefits for business leaders from this book, if you read this book, um, it will tell you why leadership is important in the workplaces, why you need to improve your communication, how it will benefit you in creating a better work environment, um, how to improve productivity, how to increase efficiency and decrease mistakes, motivate your employees or your team. So this book for business owners have these benefits once you read it, and that's for the book. But I want to get into the importance of leadership because um, it's a silent driver of success. We talk about leadership in various spheres, but it's often linked to the hidden engine that propels an organization forward. Now, while the business world celebrates groundbreaking innovations and record-breaking profits, the driving force behind these achievements often remains unseen. Leadership sets the tone, it shapes the culture, inspires the collective effort of a team towards achieving common goals. It fosters an environment of collaboration, innovation, and resilience, which are vital elements for sustainable success. And just as one does not bother acknowledging the car engine as long as it ensures a smooth ride, the most effective leaders are neither seen nor heard in the daily machinations. So when you have to think of that as a leader, most of the times you're not seen, your efforts are not seen, but your effectiveness, your efficiency is realized and it benefits um, the team, it benefits the organization, it benefits the community at large. So thank you, Gary.
All right, thanks for that share, um, Frank. Now, for the listening audience, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And I want to encourage you to like, subscribe, and share once you find the content interested. I also want to encourage you to make comments, and perhaps there's a particular area of business you want us to talk about, and feel free to send us your requests, and we're happy to oblige you in looking into, subject matters that really matters to you. On Wednesday, we have another topic that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at big ticket money habits. So we will not have a program until Wednesday, which is the day after tomorrow. And we're going to go deep into big ticket money habits, and you don't want to
You don't
miss
want
it.
to miss it.
So I want to encourage you to write down those dates, write down the time, same time, 7 a.m. EST, and we're going to have fun with that subject. So with that being said, Frank, any closing words before we wrap up?
Just stay tuned with us. Follow us. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. Subscribe, follow, comment. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, today's Monday, so I want to say have a great week in front of you, and we see you back on Wednesday.